are about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show, 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So I think we need to take a breather here. I am seeing article and headline after headline that Americans don't have money for retirement. It's a big crisis. In fact, one article says 1 in 5 Americans over the age of 50 have nothing saved for retirement. And it's really adding on the stress. I get stressed when I see headlines like that. I don't have enough money for retirement. I've saved a little. It wouldn't put a dent into what things are costing now, especially with all this pressure that we're going to have to buy an electric vehicle later. Of course, I don't have enough. And so maybe rather than stressing about it, we need to approach it a little differently. This latest article from MoneyWise says we have a serious retirement crisis. New data shows 1 in 5 Americans over the age of 50 have nothing saved for retirement. Here's how to catch you up. So when you look at some of these articles, they give you ideas. And some of these ideas may be sponsored ideas. Some of these ideas may be very practical. But we need to maybe stop raising the volume of the stress, because I don't think it's very practical for the average American to have every dime they need for the rest of their lives. That's why we have Social Security. That's why we have Medicare. Because we knew intrinsically and inherently that when we got to a certain age, if by the grace of God, with medical marvels, we were going to live longer lives. Rather than life expectancy ending in our 60s, we moved that to the 70s and 80s. Life expectancy went down with the fentanyl crisis, but for the most part, people are living longer. Look at Jimmy Carter with stage 4 melanoma alive in hospice for a while, but still 100 years old. So with Godspeed, we're living longer. So if you said, Dr. Daliah, if you live till 100, do you have enough money? And I don't have enough money to live to 60. I don't. I have to work. Apparently, there was a survey from AARP. 20% of Americans age 50 or over have nothing saved for retirement, and 61% worry they won't be able to financially sustain themselves during their retirement years. So I'd like to meet that 39%. Are they rich? Are they, do they have a financial planner? What is the 39% that aren't worrying? I know some individuals who are fairly better off and wealthy overall. Yeah, they worry. Why do they worry? Well, because I think they realize that what they thought was a lot of money, $200,000 in the bank. Wow. Oh, if only I could have a fraction of $200,000 in the bank. $200,000 in the bank might not cover much these days. That's why retirees always look for specials, order the Happy Meal. They realize that they're on borrowed funds. There's only so much you could do. So I don't want people stressed. I think us panicking about not having enough money can cause us to make some very erroneous decisions. And so the stress can also accelerate our poor health. So one is we need to obviously educate the younger population. Don't be like us. Right? We thought we would somehow be able to work with the stock market or have a job that would put money into a retirement account. The average Gen X or baby boomer or millennial or Gen Z is not with the company for 20, 25 years. Which means if you jump from job to job because your company goes under or they go bankrupt and you think, you're going to start a 401k or a 503b or whatever, your job will only start that sometimes a year and a half in. So you're not building up like you thought you would. This isn't your fault. It's the fault of the way the economy is. It's not your fault that gas prices are high. It's not your fault that there's a stupid mandate where eventually we're all going to be driving electric vehicles, and those vehicles are pretty damn expensive because you can't just go and buy a used fixer-upper that you can fix yourself. And so I think what we need to do is have conversations and look at where we are and what we're doing before the crisis happens. And so I welcome the headlines that say, guys, start looking at this now. Maybe get long-term health insurance, healthcare coverage. Talk to your family, have plans. Maybe downsize. If you don't need a 4-bedroom house, downsize. If you think you're going to get good money on one piece of property, and look at what you have, look at what you could do, and also look at ways to bring an income. And then make a careful decision about Social Security, whether collecting it early or whether collecting it later. And I'm no financial expert, but as a doctor, I cannot escape the questions that patients are always asking me. And they'll say, Doc, how long do I have to live? Am I going to make it till I'm 70, 80? Because I have to make some decisions. I can't answer that for you. I mean, if I think you're in poor health, I'm going to say, I think whatever money you have in the bank is fine. But no, my goal is to make sure you could live till you're 70, 80, 90. So have some conversations with your family now. Talk about what you have, where you could save. If you haven't saved for retirement, start saving now. Don't just plan on Social Security handling everything. The average person is saying Social Security doesn't cover jack diddly squat. It should. You put your money in. If you paid your taxes and you've worked, it should have grown, but the government mismanaged it. Makes you wonder if private companies should be managing our Social Security as opposed to the government, because I don't think we're getting the proper return. The money's all in some pool, and even if you just came to this country, you get Social Security. So yeah, we're going to be at a deficit. But if you are wasting money on things that don't need to be wasted on, stop it there. If you could downsize, downsize. If you could own your home so you don't have to have a mortgage or own your property. If you could live with another family member. If you could cut back on things. If you could come up with a form of side income. Look at that. No need to panic. No need to stress, because I think more of us are in the same boat. But at least think about it and start coming up with a plan. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 855-SHARE-40. That's 855-SHARE-40. 855-SHARE-40.
Hey guys, it's Dr. Daliah. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our Fantasy Football Pocket Guide for Beginners found on Amazon, or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians, only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show, 1-877 Dr. Daliah, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, on Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and YouTube, Dr. Daliah, our channel. Click and subscribe. We really appreciate it. And our podcasts are up on YouTube as well, Spotify, iHeart, Megaphone, TuneIn. So hopefully you guys are getting the show. So we discussed this about a week or two ago, and this was something I have been warning you all about for a very long time. And I am so grateful a study is elucidating the problem we're having, which is this feeling that you are a number at a hospital, and the sooner you die and go away, the more it frees up hospital beds for other patients. And if you have been feeling pressure to DNR or pressure to, meaning do not resuscitate, to put that specification on your chart, or you're feeling pressure or your family's feeling pressure that a hospital wants you to just be let go, you're not the only one feeling that. And the study we spoke about that some of you have asked about, so we're going to talk about again, is elucidating this issue. So a study from Massachusetts General, Harvard Medical School, and other universities looked at potential clinical outcomes for patients with traumatic brain injury. And they had been put on life support. And the study has uncovered that many patients who ended up dying when life support was cut off could have actually survived and had minimal deficits if they weren't rushed into being taken off life support. The study looked at 1,392 patients who were treated in 18 trauma centers across the U.S. over a 7.5-year period. Using a mathematical model, the researchers compared patients for whom life support was withdrawn to similar patients who were kept on life support. Among the group for whom life support was not withdrawn, more than 40% recovered at least some independence. The researchers also discovered that the notion of remaining in a vegetative state was an unlikely outcome 6 months after injury. While designing the study, the team did not know what to expect. This is according to study author Yelena Bodian of the Department of Neurology Center for Neurotech and Neurorecovery at Massachusetts General. And this is being reported by Fox News. They said our anecdotal experience was that some families are told their loved ones had no chance for recovery. They could never walk, talk, work, or have a meaningful relationship again. Yet they chose not to discontinue the life support, and their loved one made a remarkable recovery. On the other hand, clinicians are under a lot of pressure, they say, to make early prognoses and do not want to commit someone to a life that would never be acceptable to them. So they said it could be that those patients who died after life support was withdrawn would have had very significant impairments otherwise. So the essence of the study is some people died who didn't need to. And I am hearing time and time again that in the ER setting or at the bedside, families are being asked to make a judgment call. Well, they're going to suffer. This is going to keep happening. And, if you have a gut instinct and you say, can we hold our horses a little bit here? Maybe act on that. Now, have I taken care of patients where they were stage 4 cancer, they were dying, they were in pain, and had conversations with the family about what was the desire of the patient and what they think is the best thing for them? Absolutely. But traumatic brain injury can happen to some young people. And some people will survive beautifully, some people won't. But don't make that judgment call too soon. And this doctor said sometimes patients with the most devastating injuries survive and make meaningful recoveries. And so, I am fearing, and I've told you this, that because of our lack of hospital beds, because of our lack of resources, because of our overworked staff, because of lack of funding, because of Medicare reimbursement, there may be more incentive for the hospital for you to be dead than for you to be alive. And I'm not accusing hospitals of this, but time and time again, you guys are telling me that you feel so pressured before you even enter the hospital to make decisions to do not resuscitate and not to do. One of you had told me that the nurse spent more time asking you what not to do or what they shouldn't do on you than what they were going to do to help you. And it's frightening. Now, in the nurse's defense, in the hospital's defense, there's a lot of pressure to make sure people aren't coming in that could be stuck on life support for months on end. I get that. Having somebody who might be terminal and taking a bed and being long-term with no chance of recovery, financially devastating the family. They're not at peace because they're stuck on life support. Obviously, it's uncomfortable. Yes, I think conversations are totally justified on what the plan is going to be and how much should be pursued. But I am seeing very quick jumping to let's maybe talk about this and call it. And then, the hospital in terms of liability, but this is what the family wanted. The patient had a severe injury. Yeah. So what do? So number one, first and foremost, make sure you have your advance directives. Be very careful about saying full court press. Still keep in mind, what if you're on life support for 6 months, in a coma for a year? Because again, if the family can't pay, also keep that in mind. But still, while you're alive and well and healthy, if you want certain things, nutrition, pain control, life support, complete that. And you could change it anytime you like. But at least start having your wishes while you're competent, you're comfortable. When you do it, make sure there's a witness, get it notarized. Number 2 is always have a health proxy. With us, one of my very good friends, as well as his son, are both doctors. They could give a very, I think, objective opinion about me. Because when your family is distraught and, they're like, oh my gosh, my mom is dying. Oh no, God forbid. And then somebody comes and says, look, it doesn't look good. Once you start down this path, you're not going to be able to make the decision to stop it. Let nature do its thing. Let them be at peace. I'm worried my sons will be like, okay, fine. I guess you're right. Because that's the only person talking to them. So I instructed my family to say thank you for their advice. You're going to take it under advisement, but to immediately call the proxies so that they could come in, take a look at the situation and say, put them on life support, see what happens for a week. Let's see what happens. Make a decision 7 days from now. Sometimes you just need that. Even if it's not a doctor, you need somebody to ground you, and you need somebody there for support because you can be very intimidated by the process. And I'm not saying it's malicious. I'm not saying a nurse or doctor is trying to free up that bed. But there's so much pressure now to not use up a bed that, or have somebody on chronic life support that it might, preclude a nice methodical, let's take a deep breath. Let's assess the situation. Let's see what happens with the brain swelling over the next few days and allow there to be a more objective evaluation. And so it's kind of frightening for you guys right now. I get that. Now, this study was just a small study. Do not interpret it to being every hospital wants to kill you. But there's this sense that you're a number, you're in the way, you're using up valuable resources, and your family's going to be pressured to not allow things to start. And people always say, well, Dr. Daliah, if you get into an accident, it's God's, desire, or it's nature's desire for you to die. Well, it could also be God's desire that you made it into a hospital where they could help. and try to fix you too. So I get it's not easy. But make sure you have what you want in writing ahead of time. And the hospital will have to follow that. Where a lot of the confusion happens is when there's nothing. And then the family has to start making these random decisions. Don't allow there to be that chaos. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Hi guys, Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show, 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So it's tick season. Ticks. I'm seeing a lot of tick bites. I don't know if it's because of the weather. I think tick season is what, April to September? Tick season, usually spring, summer. Ticks are out. They're doing their thing. We're hiking. I'm going to be hiking in the Black Forest. I can't wait. And I'm bringing whatever I need for tick protection, because if I'm going to be out in the forest, good chance we could be getting a tick. And, based on the weather, based on populations, we're being told that it's going to be a very active season. They say the 2024 tick population will be equal or if not larger than last year. And it's been getting worse. They say an increasing variety of ticks are pushing into new geographical areas, bringing unusual diseases, exotic southern species like the Gulf Coast tick, the Lone Star tick. Lone Star tick has been detected in New York and other states. But the big tick we worry about is the deer tick and the black-legged tick because of Lyme disease. Infection rates begin to peak in May. U.S. health officials estimate nearly 500,000 Lyme disease infections happen annually. So what are ticks? Well, they're little 8-legged creatures. They're not insects because they have 8 legs, so they are arachnids, and they like to suck your blood. They feed on animals and people. Because of the suck-blow mechanism, in order for them to be on you long enough to feed, they have to blow into you an anesthetic. Mosquitoes do the same thing. So you don't know they're on you. Otherwise, you feel them and you shoo them away. So they inject an anesthetic, which works quickly, which, by the way, I think we need to study that for pain control. Just whatever mosquitoes and ticks are giving us, because I don't feel anything when I get bit by something right away. So that's a pretty powerful anesthetic, if you ask me. But they inject that anesthetic into you. They take time, feed. They change color because of the blood. And then they leave. Well, when they blow that anesthetic in, they could unfortunately infect you with a disease. Now, we don't really know how many ticks there are, but we know they're pretty common. And black-legged ticks, known as deer ticks, they feed on deer. They're the most common ticks in the eastern half of the United States. And some of the numbers have changed because of what we've done with trees and replanting and things like that. But we're seeing more and more of these in the Midwest, the South, the Great Plains. And they do like warm, humid weather. Sometimes we see them more after a mild winter. The more deer and mice available also helps because they feed on deer and mice. And so for the last 4 decades, we are seeing the black-legged tick or the deer tick expand. So what do you do? Well, ticks can withstand the heat. They tend to hibernate when it's a dry summer. But when we start to get some moisture, some spring rain, and it was a wet year, I think, in Maine. So we're seeing upticks in Maine, Wisconsin. I'm licensed in Wisconsin, so I'm seeing a lot of tick bites there. They say adult ticks were out longer than usual due to a mild winter. The tick nymphs were starting to emerge, and a wet spring is a setting that allows the little baby tick nymphs to grow and flourish. And so here we are. So, the life cycle is fascinating. But my concern is we need to be outdoors. And over the last few years, the CDC has said they are seeing a skyrocketing number of illnesses from ticks, fleas, and mosquitoes. Back in 2018, they had noticed that mosquito, tick, and flea bites had tripled in the United States, with more than 640,000 cases between 2004 and 2016. 9 new germs spread by mosquitoes and ticks were discovered and introduced into the United States. Chikungunya, Zika. Remember Zika hit? That was during 2016, during the Brazilian Olympics. And so West Nile, more Lyme disease. So at the time, Dr. Robert Redfield had stated that Zika, West Nile, Lyme, and Chikungunya was a list of diseases caused by the bite of an infected mosquito, tick, or flea, and we're seeing more and more of those cases. So what do you do to prevent getting, ticks? Well, avoid tick and mosquito infested areas. Now, I like to hike. I like to be out in the forest. I like to watch deer. People like to go hunting. Well, if so, what you need to do is wear long, breathable shirts to protect your arms. These ticks will get to your thigh. They'll crawl up your pants and get to your thigh. They'll get into your sock or shoe, get into your hairline. So tuck your pants into socks. Don't be wearing shorts. Wear light-colored clothing. So these ticks are smart. They're brown, so they want to be on brown things. They don't want to stand out. So if you're wearing something fluorescent, pink, yellow, they're not going to go near you. Now, every time you come indoors, you need to examine the skin for ticks, and you need to carefully remove them. A lot of people say they just light a match to the tick's butt. I can't recommend that. I do not want you putting any fire near you, especially when you have a kid who could jump. Basically, you grab it not by the head, not by the butt, but by the thorax, by the middle, and do a quick stroke upward to get the whole thing out. Using insect repellent also is a good idea. You could spray your body, you could spray your clothes, and you just need to be aware that sometimes these things have to be reapplied. And it also helps, of course, with mosquitoes too, and fleas, all that. The big, obviously, concern we have is Lyme disease. Lyme disease is spread by a bacteria. And when you get this, it can cause lifelong sequelae. They say 20 to 30% of these black-legged tick nymphs that emerge in the Northeast and Midwest and into the summer are going to carry the bacteria that causes Lyme disease. Lyme disease symptoms can start between 3 and 30 days after a bite occurs. Fever, headache, fatigue, this bullseye-looking rash. So we treat you with antibiotics. Now, it's a little tricky. A lot of you guys are using telemedicine for this. If you find a tick and you remove it, we could give you the preventative doxycycline on telemedicine. But we cannot run the titers. We cannot diagnose you with Lyme disease. We cannot monitor you, treat you. Lyme disease is reportable. So if you have a possible exposure, you need to be seen in person. What I recommend is, one, make sure your tetanus is up to date. Because if you call in saying, I got bit by a tick, the first thing we're going to ask is your tetanus up to date? If a tick can spread the bacteria for Lyme disease, they could also spread the bacteria for tetanus. So we want to make sure your tetanus is up to date. Number two is we're going to want to make sure the whole thing got taken out. Some people say, I can't tell. It's scabbed. It was in there overnight. Let us medical providers look at it. We'll clean it out. Sometimes we'll just debride the area, and then we'll give you antibiotics. The preventative antibiotic dosing of doxycycline, where you get 100 milligrams, but 2 pills, because it doesn't come 200 milligrams, so you take 2 100 milligrams in one shot. That's preventative dosing. But there's no way for us to say that's enough. If you have Lyme disease, you may need a longer course. So still get yourself checked out, and then have your medical provider do follow-up testing. Lyme disease could affect your autoimmune system. It could affect fertility. It could affect your heart. It's just not a good disease to get. So use permethrin-treated clothing. Use insect repellents. Always check for ticks. Walk in the middle of paths, not by trees and brush, because these ticks can jump onto you. And then look everywhere on your body. Waist, behind the knees, fingers, toes, underarms, belly button, tushy area, and then seek care. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away.
Considered by most, optimized curcumin is one of the few bioavailable and highly absorbable curcumin products on the market. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch. Since most chronic diseases have inflammation, our optimized curcumin seems to be a perfect addition to any nutritional program. It makes sense to me that preventing or reducing inflammation is a key component to our overall health. The Mayo Clinic found that curcumin can decrease swelling and inflammation, has antioxidant properties, and research suggests that curcumin can prevent cancer, or at least slow the spread of cancer, and in many instances make chemotherapy more effective. It protects our healthy cells even from radiation. TotalWellness.com, where we help you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show, 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So I am broadcasting remote from Stuttgart, Germany, and we've had a couple really great interviews call in. So we are going to play that now so you guys can listen up. All right, hold on tight.
So we've been speaking about this pain epidemic that we have, and I am startled every time I see the numbers. And the current statistics is 1 in 5 adults are currently living with chronic pain. And pain management is a fascinating subject. It's a fascinating topic, and it's more than just pharmaceuticals. And I am so excited to have our next guest, Tony Matoska, physical therapist, DPT, CMPT, certified manual physical therapist, and Spine Specialty Program Manager at Athletico Physical Therapy, to talk to us about how to manage chronic pain. Tony, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Wow. So tell us what you're seeing.
So we're seeing a lot of chronic pain. It's becoming more recognized and an increasingly larger problem. And one of the biggest drivers is we're just becoming more passive as a society. Adults aren't getting enough movement throughout their day. We drive to work, we sit, and we come back home and we sit, and we're just not getting that exercise that our body needs. And on top of that, there's a lot of personal and life stress that can add to these problems. And as our health problems grow, so can the pain. And we're also seeing that a lot of these people are getting driven to prescription medications to manage the pain, along with undergoing a lot of more invasive procedures, surgeries, imaging that may be unnecessary, that can add to a lot of costs and long-term side effects too. So when we deal with these people dealing with chronic pain, and when we work with treating them, it really takes a multidimensional approach, and physical therapy is a really excellent place to start for that.
It is so true. I've been getting patient after patient calling with low back pain or neck pain or hip pain. And when I ask them, what is your daily activity? They go, I don't do any. I sit, I work remote, and the more you move and the more we work on ourselves with physical modalities, the better. And so you're definitely in the thick of it. How do you diagnose? What are your criteria to diagnose chronic pain?
The biggest criteria is just timeline. Anything more than 6 months is generally a chronic pain problem. At this point, it's not just the initial inflammatory response that's occurred with the initial injury. You're now dealing with other stresses that are going to contribute. You're going to deal with weakness, stiffness, loss of stamina, and then people are just going to be a lot more shelled and living in a bubble because of their pain, and they don't know how to necessarily get out of it. And that's where a good PT can come into play to really help start the process.
Amen to that. And we also have now this attitude of, well, you don't have to suffer. If you have pain, just take something. Just take, and we've trained people to go to the pills. I'm, being an MD and married to a chiropractor, I saw, you needed a combined approach. The pain medication didn't manage it. I taught at an osteopathic school. I've worked with physical therapists my whole practice. They are the backbone of pain management. And so we're really grateful for all you do. So how do you approach a patient who says, look, I'm taking medication now, the medication's not working. How do you talk to them about these better ways to manage pain?
Well, day one, we need to start with our assessment and evaluation, where we really get to know the patient and their story. We found out what they've been through, what they've done for treatment, how long it's been bothering them, what it's keeping them from doing. And we really need to form what we call a therapeutic alliance, where we kind of connect with the patient and educate them and get them understand on what the process of recovery should look like. So after that's completed, we deep dive into the areas that are most problematic and maybe driving a lot of the problems. And then we start treatment on day one. That treatment may involve a little bit of hands-on things, somewhat similar to some chiropractors do, but it's at least something to get them moving, hopefully get them feeling a little bit better. And then the most important thing is teaching them what they're going to do outside of the clinic. Their recovery will not just happen in the clinic working with your therapist, but it's going to be really important to know what you're doing outside of there to reinforce the things that are done in clinic. And once they start doing more and start getting out of that bubble I was just talking about, they can really start to see some really beneficial changes.
You're so true. So right on with that. We are talking to Tony Matuska, certified manual physical therapist and spine specialty program director at Athletico Physical Therapy. What are you seeing as the most common type of chronic pain? Back, head, neck? What are you seeing?
I would say spine in general. It is one of the scarier things to think about as patients when they are, I am dealing with a back problem. There's a lot of fear mongering that's out into the internet stratosphere there of it's dangerous to do certain movements. It's dangerous to do certain types of lifts and activities. And there's not a lot of evidence to say that's true at all. And really what is true is that we need to find ways to stay active, and it maybe modify activity for the short term, but do good rehabilitation approach activities to reinforce your ability to get back to normal. So spine cases are the more common ones I see. I'd say about 60% of my caseload right now is chronic spine related injuries of different variations, of different chronicities, and at different intensities.
Okay, that makes sense. And obviously you and I are of the same mindset of let's try to prevent the pain. Let's try to prevent, when you sleep at night, put a pillow between your knees. What are some tips that you like to recommend to minimize or prevent pain?
So two of the biggest things that contribute to the onset of chronic pain are poor sleep hygiene, meaning we're not getting our necessary 8 hours of sleep a night, at least on average, and then stress. chronic stress can be a major contributor to pain. The number one predictor of developing chronic pain is depression. So the more depressive type symptoms we are, the more likely we are to find ourselves in pain in the long periods of time. So making sure we're having a set and consistent sleep and wake time. We're aiming for that 8 hours of sleep a night. There's strategies that you can discuss with your physical therapist on helping get to that and setting up success for that. It might require some modifications for what you're doing at home. And then from a stress management standpoint, it's finding healthy ways to manage that stress, and managing that stress can not only help improve your pain, but also improve your sleep. Things like deep breathing, getting a good combination of aerobic and resistance-based exercises, and then other outside the box thinking too, like meditation and mindfulness training can be really helpful tools to help managing stress.
So true. Absolutely. And it's interesting. My patients who have had knee replacements and hip replacements, they thank God for the therapist. I'm inviting them over to Thanksgiving because honestly, what you guys do in terms of getting people mobile again and active prevents, further, morbidity. And, I think some people are a little apprehensive about going to physical therapy because they think it's going to hurt. I've had physical therapy. I love it. What can my listeners expect if they do go and utilize physical therapy?
Well, I tell everyone that PT does not stand for pain and torture. You do not need to feel worse in order to feel better. Okay. We can do a lot of nice, helpful things. Things might be difficult or challenging, but you don't need to experience more of your pain in order to get better. So what to expect is you need to expect to get to know your therapist, and your therapist will get to know you. And that's something we really pride ourselves here at Athletico. We need to know your story and discuss how and why you got here and what we can do to help you out. And again, that treatment's going to start day one with either some hands-on treatment if necessary, but again, going over every single thing you can go through at home. And it might be a step-by-step process. We're not going to give you 1,000 different things to work on from day one. You might get 2 or 3 things to work on day one, and slowly building upon and modifying that program as we get you back to your normal.
Absolutely. And like you basically mentioned, it's a conversation. I think one of the reasons why people bond with their physical therapist is they have the time to talk to them, and the therapist is listening. And that's why you guys are kind of last man standing in terms of what we really, really need to embody in medical care, because you allow that conversation to happen. And we're just so appreciative. So in the last minute or so, where can my listeners find more information?
Yeah, the best way to find some more information about us is www.athletico.com. There we have a lot of information on all of Athletico services that we provide. You can learn more about our 900 plus locations that we have across the country. We also have an extensive library of health resources and blogs written by our therapists on how to manage pain, get back to activity, get ready for certain sports and activities season to season. And then you can learn more about direct access or the ability to go straight to your physical therapist without having to go see your doctor first, especially with certain insurances. Unlike Medicare and Medicaid, where you still need the doctor's order. And you can also learn about the free assessments we offer too, where if you're not sure if PT is right for you, well, you can talk to a therapist and figure out if that's the right pathway for you to start with.
And also, don't wait, people, until you're in pain. Maintenance sometimes helps. A lot of us, we just need a checkup. So I think physical therapy is one of the best modalities ever to prevent a lot of our chronic pain and depression and other morbidity. So, Tony, we are so grateful for you and Athletico, and we can't wait to have you back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. All right, guys, don't go away. We'll be right back. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.